DevilNeverCry.
DevilNeverCry Peak of Combat, the new mobile DMC game, recently underwent a whole new blowout of information, partly thanks to a Q&A session the developers held, where we come to see more gameplay and learn the release date for the new global beta. Of course, there is also some controversy, or some potential controversy, that I also want to talk about. So without further ado, let's dive right in. Okay, so quickly, first things first, what you're seeing here in the background of this video is the new trailer that they dropped to coincide with the announcement of the global beta's release date. It features Dante, Nero, Lady and Trish, all kicking demon ass as usual, but specifically in this video I do want to focus on the Q&A session, as this is where most of the information was held. Before we move on, I ask that you like this video and consider subscribing. Not only does it help out a ton with the algorithm, but it means you won't miss out on anything and everything DevilNeverCry. First up, the official and full release of DevilNeverCry Peak of Combat is targeted for the second half of this year, sometime in Q3 or Q4. This is for the full global release, which will support a myriad of different languages. Up next, is DMC Peak of Combat considered canon? After all, this game initially was introduced as a potential retelling of DevilNeverCry 3, which quickly fell by the wayside once you saw Virgil, Lady and Dante fighting together, and then you have the introduction of Nero here, which kind of throws another spanner in the works. The developers went on to confirm that this is potentially a parallel timeline, or a what-if scenario of DevilNeverCry, essentially to avoid any paradoxes in the main canon timeline. They didn't divulge any more story details to avoid spoiling people, suggesting only that we play the game for ourselves to see what the story really is. Going one step further, a community member asked about playable characters. After all, here we have Nero, Dante, Virgil and Lady, 4 playable characters. People are wondering if there's going to be any more, with the answer being potentially. There is no character that is off of the table, with Trish, V and Lucia being mentioned specifically. They did also allude to the fact that there may be more playable characters that we haven't seen quite yet, but refuse to expand on what exactly that means. Again, I'm assuming to avoid spoilers and to keep some of the intrigue as to the gameplay of Peak of Combat. The developers then touched upon monetization in DMC Peak of Combat, which I'm honestly not surprised. They got over 300 questions apparently for this Q&A, so they were bound to get some questions on monetization and how the currency system works. But they did state that they know that it's a sensitive subject, and as such will be listening quite closely to all of the feedback they get from this closed beta, as ultimately they want people to win and be the victor through their own skills, as opposed to who has the bigger wallet and going the full pay-to-win route. They mentioned that also includes PvP, they don't want that to be pay-to-win either. I am surprised that they did actually tackle this question head-on, considering how easy it would have been to just skirt around it entirely, especially as there's been a multitude of people who have raised concerns about this being a standard gacha system or standard pay-to-win where people just spend money endlessly to get what they want. How the currency or the supposed economy in the game ends up though, we'll just have to wait and see. And then we come to the potentially controversial portion of what they discussed, and something that's kind of been permeating throughout pretty much every part of the DMC community that has been focused or paying attention to this game, and that essentially is the changing or the streamlining of the control scheme. If you've seen some of my previous videos and even the live stream where I was able to get hands-on with this beta and an earlier point a couple of years ago, you'll have noticed that the control scheme is different in those videos and streams compared to what we see now. Back then, I kind of enjoyed the fact that they were able to keep core things like weapon switching and style switching in the game, and kind of kept the complexity that made DMC DMC. That seems to have been altered or changed, evolved perhaps as the developers themselves have put it, to focus more on character switching instead of things like style or weapon switching. That is to say, it's real-time character switching, so you could be mid-combo and then switch to Lady all of a sudden, then switch to Virgil and then back to Dante. But the developers themselves stressed that they feel that this adds more complexity than it takes away, hoping that people will realize when they get their hands on the game. And they used an example of having a loadout of 3 different Dantes, all equipped with their own different styles and weapons, allowing you to switch between all 3 versions in real time, essentially replacing the weapon and style switching mechanic of the old beta. As for my own opinion, I can see potentially why a lot of people in the community would be worried, but ultimately I'll be reserving final judgment until I'm able to get hands-on and experience this new change for myself. before rendering a final verdict. Moving on, they announced that this upcoming closed beta will be Android only, which is safe to say that I myself will be emulating it on PC just like I did with the previous beta I played. They did reaffirm, however, that a native PC version of the game is still in development, which means you won't need an emulator for the final release. They then added that they're aiming to have the next playable beta after this one available on PC with full controller support. And then last, but certainly not least, we have the global beta, which they confirmed will be launching on the 23rd of March in just a couple of weeks. For those of you that saw my previous video, you'll know that this is a closed beta, and I'm currently doing a giveaway for a few beta access keys. That giveaway is still live, by the way. I'll leave a link to it down in the description, but I'll be announcing winners quite soon, so definitely get your entry in there. And with that, we come to the end of this video. I'm very much looking forward to getting hands-on with the DMC Peak of Combat, but let me know your thoughts on the game down in the comments below. If you want to check out the Q&A session in its entirety, I'll also leave a link to it in the description. With all that said and done, it has been me, DevilNeverCry. I'd like to thank all of you for watching, and as always, I'll see you all next video.